So remember when I said I was going to do a weekly vlog about the 50K? Yeah, that was a dumb idea. So I finished the 50K, and I just want to do a recap of the training and my experience with the run. Obviously, trying to do a weekly vlog did not work out, but for the three of you who might be interested in how it went, I thought I'd at least tell you about it, and if you're thinking of trying one for the first time, maybe this will give you some insights on what you might expect. So some quick stats, roughly estimating, I ran 757 miles training for the 50K. Obviously, I've been running before I started the training program, but just from the time I started the training program, 757 miles. I missed maybe somewhere between 5 and 10 training sessions due to either weather or I got sick for a couple of days. But I stuck with it better than I thought I might, actually. So it seemed to go well, and I seemed to be pretty prepared. I had a secondary goal that I didn't really talk about I don't think I mentioned it in one of these vlogs, but I have kind of an embarrassing best and only marathon time of 4 hours and 57 minutes, which I would really like to be under 4.5 hours for no reason other than I would like to be. And I was kind of hoping that training for this run, I knew there was a marathon during the training, and I was hoping maybe I might, get a PR on that, maybe get down closer to that goal or even beat it. So I did the marathon in the training, and because there was not an organized marathon in my area at the time, I just went out and did it by myself, which didn't, I don't think, impact my performance in any way. But about 17 miles in, which is where a lot of people fall apart apparently, I started getting a lot of cramps in my legs. Pretty much all of the muscles in my legs started cramping with every step. So I ended up walking the entire last 6 miles and some even before that. So I ended up with like a 5.5 hour marathon, not an improvement. Hold on. Okay. Hi. Thank you. Incidentally, I took note of my marathon time in the 50K and was about 5 hours and 15 minutes under pretty challenging trail conditions that day compared to what I did for the marathon in training and the marathon that I did 10 years ago. So that felt a little bit better to me, but I don't know, maybe I'll have to train for a marathon and try to get a little faster. Oh, before I forget, here's the finisher medal for the event, and I'm going to take it off now because I don't, I used to think the whole medal thing was really cool and everything, but I don't know. I never know what to do with those things. They just end up taking up space in a drawer somewhere. So anyway, my training went really well. I said in my first video on this subject that my goals were to not get hurt, to finish, and to have fun. And I definitely accomplished all three of those things. I was completely injury-free throughout the training. I did a couple of trail runs. On one of them, I fell a couple times, but I didn't get injured at all. By the very last week or two of training, I was starting to get some plantar fasciitis symptoms in one foot. But, some stretching and rolling on a lacrosse ball seemed to mitigate that, and it didn't give me any problems on the run. I did a lot of self-myofascial release, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about that. You can Google it and learn about it if you want. I'm not knowledgeable enough to talk about it intelligently, but I did that a lot during this training period, and that seemed to be very, very helpful. I also, the day I got home from the run, I jumped into the bathtub with a tub full of water as cold as I could get it and dumped a bunch of ice in it, and that was exceedingly uncomfortable. But the next day I was walking around as normal. When I did the marathon 10 years ago, at that time I lived in a 2-story place, and it was like really difficult to go up and down stairs. I was super sore for a couple of days after. This time, nothing at all. I felt completely normal the next day, as if I hadn't done anything. As far as the event goes, I titled this video with the or did I, not just so much as clickbait, but there was a little bit of an issue with the mileage for this race. Because of the location of the race, it's very sensitive to weather and rainfall. It's in a swamp. And some of the original route was flooded, and the organizers of the event did not want runners having to run through standing water. There are tons and tons of alligators and snakes and stuff in this area. So they had to change the route slightly. And when they did, they used published data from the park to estimate the mileages. And evidently it wasn't very accurate. So by the last aid station, everyone doing the 50K realized that the mileage was going to be short. It ended up at the finish. If you just went to the finish line, it was 27.7 miles. Well, I got to the finish line and saw that on my GPS watch thing, and I thought, I didn't train for 6 months to run 27.7 miles. I trained to run 50K, so I stopped right before the finish line, turned around, and ran back out. And that was awesome. I was a hero, even. But I was also somewhat tired by then, and I couldn't do math or remember numbers very well. So I live in the United States. We use miles instead of the metric system. We use the imperial system. And because I may do other distances frequently that are not metric, I just run with my GPS watch set to miles. And so 50 kilometers in miles is 31, it's actually like 31.64, I think, or something like that. But it just rounds up 31.1. Somehow I got it in my head that it was 30.1. So I turned around a little sooner than I should have. And I ended up finishing at something like 30.7 or something like that. So pretty close. And I mean, I did a 50K event and I finished it. I'm happy to say I did a 50K. Wasn't exactly 50K, but I darn sure wasn't going to finish at 27.7, though. That was, I can't round that up and feel good about it. Incidentally, I finished, kind of lower middle of the pack, which for me is a great victory. I'm happy to not come in dead last. So I was pretty happy with my placement, and I wouldn't have placed any differently if I hadn't turned around and done the extra mileage. By that point, the pack had spread out so far that it didn't really matter that I ran for another half hour or whatever it was. Where I finished was never really a concern for me. I just wanted to finish the race. I really enjoyed the race. It was actually a lot of fun. Maybe fun's not the right word. There were times when it was fun. There were times that it was exceedingly challenged. There was about a 5-mile stretch between, say, mile 16 and 21, something like that, that was through a wide open, moist prairie swamp buggy trail thing that was wet enough to be challenging footing, but very hot, very exposed to the sun. It was an unpleasant period, and I ended up having to walk a lot of that part of the race. One other thing I wanted to point out, and I may do a separate video on this one day, if you're interested, post a comment and let me know. I think I spent somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,000 doing this event. It's funny because you think, running, that's cheap. You need a pair of shoes and, some clothes to wear, and you go run. I think the entrance for this race was somewhere in the $200 range. I forget all the details, but I've gone through 3 pairs of shoes. The first pair I had were these Merrell Ultra, and by the way, none of this is a recommendation for you to use a particular shoe. Shoes are especially shoes are very much a personal, individual thing. You need to find shoes that work for you. But anyway, so I was using these Merrell really minimalist shoes, which is what I prefer. I like a minimalist shoe when I run, and this is not supposed to be this way. That's completely worn down. I can't remember if it's pronate or super pronate or whatever. My feet go out to the outboard side like that. So that wore out very badly. And then I switched to these Ultras. These are kind of cool because their toe box is shaped like your foot. So I gave these a try. They're more padded than I normally like, but I actually ended up really loving these shoes. But I also wore these out after a couple hundred miles. I think about 300 miles I wore these out. Thanks, buddy. That's a lot of help. So I had to get another pair of those to finish, and these still have some life left in them. I've got, I don't know, 150, 200 miles on these. And then I'm not going to drag it all out, but there's water bottle carriers and nipple protectors, and trust me, you want to invest in some of those. Nutrition stuff, like, I guess I say this to say, don't think that it's free if you want to do something like this. But the good news is a lot of these expenses are spread out over the 6 months or so that I was training. It's not like I had to come up with $1,000 cash to start. So anyway, for those of you who have subscribed to this channel and had any interest at all in following me through this process, I'm sorry that I didn't stick with the weekly vlog. I will only say that my life got really, really hectic during this training period for reasons that are not worth going into. No excuse, but, trying to do a vlog was just not a good idea for me. However, also, like, we all have busy lives and stuff, and that doesn't mean you can't embark on something like this. Like, there were days when I had to just not do a training run. I had to shift my schedule around to get training runs in. I did things like, we had plans to meet family members for a casual dinner after work one day, so I ran there from work, and it was 8 miles, and then had my wife bring me back to my car afterwards. We returned from a trip, and I dropped off the rental car and then ran home from that. I think there were 4 or 5 times when I would try to incorporate a run into an errand or something else I was doing just to be able to get it done that day. So you can make it work even if you're busy, but something had to give, and vlogging was the thing. But anyway, that's that. I finished it. You might wonder if I'm ever going to do another one, or do I intend to go for longer distances. I don't know yet. I think another 50K is very likely, and maybe a 50 miler might be possible. There's some runs I'm interested in doing, but I'm not sure yet. I have some other things that I want to do first. I am going to keep up the running, though, and I'll probably still do some running events. I lost about 10 pounds training for this, and I didn't realize I had 10 pounds to lose, but I definitely feel like I'm in better shape now, and I'd like to keep it that way. So I'm certainly going to keep running and also do some other exercise too. Anyway, thanks for having an interest in this. If you're thinking about trying a 50K or a marathon or a 10K or a 5K, whatever, I definitely encourage you to seek out some kind of training and do it. I think I would have benefited from having an actual coach rather than just following a generic program. So maybe I will look into that for my next events. But even if I would have benefited from that, just the generic online training program was enough to get me to finish. And I'm really glad I did it. It was a very rewarding experience, and I would encourage you to set a goal for yourself and go out and try. So, anyway, thank you very much for watching. See you next time.